I was lightning before the thunder.
Thunder, 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 thunder.
Welcome in to the IDP Fantasy Empire. Of course, this is the Coliseum of Knowledge. This is the free version of our podcast. This week we're going to cover a lot of news that we've been needing to backlog here. And then we also have a little new segment, Risers and Fallers. It's been kind of requested for us to do it, and so we're going to give it to you guys and see how you like it, see how it feels. Yeah.
All right, we'll jump right into the defensive linemen. We'll go back and forth, kind of ask each other what we think about this. This is going to be a long news segment. We haven't done anything since the Super Bowl and the recap of the Super Bowl. So, again, we want to give the plug for our premium podcast. Our middle linebackers, they're going to be free. You're going to be able to listen to them. It's going to have all the rookie middle linebackers. And to get all the fantasy knowledge of all of our qualitative breakdowns of all these rookies, you're going to have to buy the premium podcast. And it's $5. We have it on our website. A lot of different links that you can click on, but the main one is the subscribe button. And our website is idpfantasyempire.com. Jump right in, defensive lineman. We got Torrey Petrie reporting that Ezekiel Ansah, the defensive end for Detroit, was franchise tagged.
Boo. I was hoping he was going to test the market, man. I understand why they're keeping him. I think he's kind of starting to come into his own finally. Feels like it's been a while, you know. But, again, this is a guy who, this end is what, a 4-year contract, rookie deal?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about a guy who, if he could put it together this year, could be getting a pretty nice pay chunk. And it's also not a bad deal for him either because they're getting a new coach.
Yeah.
So that can dictate a lot of stuff of where the coach wants to go. I think if, you know, the new coaching staff falls in love with him, he may be a mainstay.
Yeah, I want to go back on that. I believe it's the second contract. My bad. I think he's 30 years old.
Is he really that old?
He's an older defensive lineman. As I'm talking, Paul, go ahead and pull that up.
Yeah, I didn't think he was that old yet.
So with Ansah, I think that he's finally become his own. He was injured last year. He's been injured quite a few times in the past couple of years, so there's a lot of risk there. And for him, he came out very raw. We see this a lot with one of the defensive ends coming out this year, Marcus Davenport. He's going to be one of those projects that needs to be worked through, depending on what NFL team he goes to.
This is actually he has 6 seasons under his belt. So he's 28. Yeah. And he is from Ghana, and that was the thing coming out of college is he was really raw coming out of college. BYU only had him for a little while, and then he made the jump.
Take that back. He is 28 years old, but an older player. He's right in his prime, honestly, for a defensive end. All those years of knowledge and what have you. We got a lot of news, so we'll move into the next guy. Todd Archer is reporting that Randy Gregory, a defensive end for Dallas, is expected to be reinstated by the league. Cowboys are also taking the worst-case scenario and expecting him not to be reinstated. I think that's the best approach to take. Be pessimistic because you don't know what's going to happen. 1, with the players. 2, with his attitude.
What exactly did he do again?
Domestic violence.
Oh,
And
okay.
this one, I believe, is drugs.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot there. I'm not going to be rushing to the waiver wire to pick him up unless it's a huge league. And even then, it's going to be burning a hole your roster. Go ahead and take your next one, Paul.
David Hillman reports that David Irving, defensive tackle for Dallas, is expected to be a restricted free agent. Panthers.com reports that Charles Johnson, defensive end for Carolina, was released by the Panthers. Not really surprised there. Charles Johnson, this was probably a cut that was coming. I do know they still want Julius Peppers to come back for one more year, so we'll see how that goes.
I think he's been squeezed to death. We actually got him later on.
Mm-hmm.
But Charles Johnson, he played a lot better a couple of years ago. We haven't really seen much from him. He was injured last year. I am not excited picking him up.
Can definitely agree with you on that one.
Are you going to be picking him up?
No,
in the draft?
absolutely not.
No.
No, there's way better guys I'd
Dynasty,
pick up.
possibly.
Maybe, but
But
I'm iffy.
yeah, he's probably owned. He's one of those guys that sits on the end of your bench, you know, and
Mhm.
he's still got his jacket on. at the end of the game.
All right, New Orleans Time reports that Cameron Jordan, defensive end for New Orleans, underwent surgery on his left foot. Again, nothing. A lot of these guys have surgeries coming out of the offseason, so you're going to see that a lot. You know, it's constant. Nothing to be worried about.
Yeah, Cam Jordan finishing as the number one defensive end, and I believe number one defensive lineman for the league last year. Ian Rappaport is reporting that Robert Quinn, defensive end for the LA Rams, was in talks with the Peters trade. So with that Peters trade, they did not happen to get Robert Quinn. What are your thoughts on that trade? We'll talk about that trade later. What are your thoughts on Robert Quinn possibly being traded and the Chiefs having interest in him? What does that say for their draft plans and sort of their edge rush guys?
I think they're fine going young. I mean, I think this defensive end class is pretty decent, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that there is a lot to behold in this, but I don't know. I think they're setting a pretty good presence with the Chiefs, though, by trading with Peters. I mean, this is going to be a give and take scenario.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the Chiefs when we get down to the Peters trade. I got a lot for that. Todd Archer is reporting that DeMarcus Lawrence, defensive end for Dallas, will be a Cowboy in 2018, and that's coming from the Vice President, Stephen Jones.
So how much should we read into that?
He will be. I guarantee you they franchise tag him.
Oh, yeah. I assume so, too.
They're probably going to move on from Dez if things fall through.
I hope so.
If you're the Cowboys, you going with DeMarcus Lawrence or you going with Dez Bryant?
DeMarcus Lawrence.
Okay.
I mean, your offense is young overall, so why not just go totally? I still feel like they should have traded him when Romo was still with them. They could have gotten a lot more for him.
Yeah.
If they'd have been smart, they could have probably pulled a first rounder out of that deal.
Yeah. And the Cowboys, they have a history of drafting Oklahoma State wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
The guy I'm going to project them to get is
Akeem?
Marcel Aitman.
Oh, Aitman, yeah.
Bigger guy, kind of like Mike Evans, just in the tape that I watched. We plan on covering the offense down the road in one of our premium podcasts. We're going to do a podcast for the quarterbacks, the running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. I'm not going to be checking out the offensive linemen. Paul, you may dig into that. I know you kind of like it.
Yeah, I usually do just if I have some downtime because it's usually pretty easy to go through. Like, I love watching one-on-one drills with these guys because, again, you know, we preach defense, but really the guys that stand in the way is going to be the offensive line. On sacks and everything are going to be those guys.
Yeah, Paul does a really good job, especially on offensive linemen, just watching and then taking mental notes, bringing up them later on, you know, as they make an impact in the league. Miami Herald's reporting that Ndamukong Suh, a defensive lineman for Miami, may be released post June 1st if they can't make a deal. I think this is going to be one of those ones where they have time to think about it, you know.
Yeah, because they already used their franchise tag,
Yeah.
so that's out. Ian Rappaport reports that Sheldon Richardson is unlikely to get a franchise tag. I think he'll probably go back to New York. I said that during the middle of the season. I still feel the same way. Arizona Sports reports that Robert Kimdiche is expected to get a clean slate with a new staff. So, again, this is a guy who has had some issues, but, again, with Bruce Arians being gone, that's a lot.
Yeah, I love this kid. He's actually a guy that I targeted this week in a trade. Went ahead and what did they trade for? A third?
I don't even
No, it was a
remember.
fourth. It was a fourth for Robert Kimdiche and I think Quandre Diggs. Quandre Diggs, cornerback that they moved to safety at the end of the season. I don't really see them playing him as much as they did last year because of the injuries.
Whenever I see
Davon
Bucks
Wilson.
trades, I just know just to ignore them because they're just going to make me mad. That's pretty much how they go.
So where did you fall on Kimdiche with that trade? Did you feel like I got a nice piece, or did you feel like?
I mean, I feel like if you like a guy, you like a guy. You know, I mean, I feel like he'll produce enough points of defensive tackle to be all right for you.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't see much stock in defensive line unless they're the upper echelon because those are the ones that can be a little bit of a game changer week to week.
Yeah.
But the way our league points are set up is it's usually some other factors that factor into who scores the most, and usually defensive linemen are on the backside of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things about Robert Nkemdiche. He was hurt a lot in the past couple of years, and I believe he only played, 7 games? Yeah.
I think it's 7 or 8, yeah.
I think he's got a huge window, and I think he can run through it. He's shown throughout the past that he does jump out windows.
Yeah, he does.
That's going back to his stint at Ole Miss. All right, ESPN is reporting that Alan Branch, defensive tackle for New England, is expected to play his last season in New England. If you have him, sell him. I don't see much value there.
I completely agree. Buccaneers.com reports that Chris Baker was released. I wasn't surprised by this. I think we talked about him a while back.
Yeah, in the offseason.
I'm okay with it. I can't wait to see where he goes.
Yeah.
I think if he goes back to the scheme that he's happy with, he's going to make a nice fit somewhere.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of infighting with the Buccaneers last year.
Yeah.
Especially with the quarterback going down and a lot of guys wanting to be heroes.
And the fact they had no running back as well didn't help the situation at all. They couldn't even bring in people fast enough to try to get any rushing game going.
And Chris Baker was fighting with Mike Evans quite a bit.
Mike Evans fights with everyone. Jeez, he fights with everyone.
The Charlotte Observer is reporting that Julius Peppers, defensive end for Carolina, is leading toward returning for a 17th season. He was a guy that I was really high on last season, and Paul was actually ahead of me, saying, "Hey, don't buy in." A guy that I expected to have a great homecoming with the Carolina Panthers last season, and they were just using him situationally in third down. You got anything on Peppers?
Yeah, I completely agree. I tried to warn that was probably going to be what the Panthers were going to do, because that's kind of what he finished off his Green Bay career doing, was just being that third down guy. And, there's nothing wrong with that, but, when you break it down into fantasy numbers, that's not going to do you much, especially in a position that doesn't score you a lot week to week anyway.
Yeah, he wasn't getting back to the passer at all.
No,
he had 3 sacks.
Yeah, and that's probably saying more than I thought.
Sacramento Bee is reporting that Eric Armstead, defensive end for San Francisco, missed the last 10 games of the season with a hand injury. He was playing extremely well. Pro Football Focus and Football Outsiders were both high on him. I played a lot of Madden. Eric Armstead ended up getting a Football Outsiders monthly card, and that card was beast. I liked him coming out of Oregon. I think he's a stud, and especially if he continues to produce in this defense, I think he's a guy that you may want to target this offseason.
Cool. All right. Philly Voice. I kind of like that. That's kind of a cool beat name. Philly Voice. Brendan Graham wants a contract extension. Not surprised. The dude is a stud, and you'd be kind of dumb not to give him one, or at least start working on it.
I believe he had the only sack in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Fantasy-wise, this doesn't say much. The guy's going to perform, whether he gets the contract or not.
Even if he, for some reason, holds out or whatever, like Donald, he's still going to come out and be just fine when he comes out. I'm not worried about that at all.
The guy that a lot of people are polarized on is Derek Wolfe. We're reporting that 9 News says that his neck is fixed. He's a defensive end for Denver. He's had neck pain since 2013. That's pretty telling. He's played good in stints. He's always been hurt in and out of the lineups the past few years. What are your thoughts on him? Are you going to be targeting him if you don't have him in a dynasty league? And what about a redraft?
I feel like if I could get him for cheap, I would be okay risking it, especially if I already have depth in position. But it's really going to come down to the roster size. For some of these smaller leagues, you're probably not going to have that much to move him or to get him or to really warrant playing him is going to be the problem.
All right, when you say cheap, imagine you have 10 rounds with 14 teams or so. What round are you going to be considering trading away to get him?
6th or 7th, maybe.
Yeah.
And I feel like that sounds super low, but again, I want to know that his neck is fully healed. The thing is, the dude can ball out. The reason I've always liked him is because of his story. He was once homeless. He's one of those guys who scratched and fought to get into the NFL. And those are the kind of guys who will play hard every time they go out there.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily an issue that I have to worry about, like, oh, is he going to actually play? You know, that's what I'm worried about with some other guys. SNY reports that Muhammad Wilkerson is expected to be released. That'd probably make about sense because I think Sheldon Richardson's going to go back there. So, I've been preaching that, and I still feel like it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. Indianapolis Stars reporting that Jabal Sheard, formerly a linebacker, is going to be moved to defensive end for Indianapolis.
Thank God.
I think this is what he probably fits best at.
Just think if they grab Chubb, man. They could have a nasty ends, man.
Yeah.
Nasty ends.
You know, I like Henry Anderson, another guy that they've had, and they've been trying to get him on the field, but he's constantly hurt. Whenever he does play, he plays well. One of those guys that's about mid-tier talent. IDP-wise, he's situational.
I guess we'll see what happens when Josh McDaniels. Oh, wait, he didn't go there.
He's a situational guy that you can play week to week and stream.
Is it weird that I don't even remember who they hired? The Colts?
Me either, bro.
Yeah, like
I heard so many interviews with that dude, and he is more football speak than Vance Joseph.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he's terrible.
Ugh. Like, I swear I don't. I know he's been a coordinator, but, man, I don't know how to shape that team, you know? With some of these guys, you can tell how to shape a team that can help your fantasy numbers because you're going to see guys who are going to start getting more playing time. But right now, I don't know.
For sure. The Boston Herald's reporting that Preston Brown, linebacker for Buffalo, is expected to hit the free agency market. Patriots have interest in
Of
him.
course they do. He's an old linebacker. Why would they not have
No,
interest
he's
in
pretty
him?
young. I think he's like 26, 27.
Preston Brown's 26.
Yeah.
He looks like he's 57.
Yeah, I know.
What are you talking about? I'm not surprised. The Patriots are always finding gems that they can get for cheap. I mean, Preston Brown's probably going to be pretty cheap. I wouldn't expect him to be...
No, he's 25.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. I think he's one of
swear
those
he was
guys
older.
that plays a little bit tighter. Obviously, he's on the borderline of a starter or a bench guy.
But where does he fit in with the Patriots?
Another depth linebacker, dude.
So, I mean, basically takes him out of fantasy relevance
No,
unless someone
I
gets
don't think
hurt.
it does because Dante Hightower is always going to be hurt.
Well, but I mean, Van Noy played so well, he's going to have a spot. And I think Roberts is still a better player.
I don't think Roberts is better than Preston Brown.
I think Roberts just needs a shot, man.
Numbers show that.
I know. I can still believe in who I want to believe in, man.
All right. You can die on that. I'm not.
It's not a very big hill. It's more of a mound, not a hill. It's less than a custard hill, okay? I'm completely fine with retreating after that.
Another
It's a
guy,
pitcher's mound.
Another guy that is a journeyman. Field Yates is reporting that Gerald Hodges, a linebacker for New Orleans, he did play for San Francisco and Minnesota, has been released. What are your thoughts on this dude? Are you wanting any teams to pick him up? Could he potentially start?
I don't know. It just really depends, man.
He's really mediocre.
Yeah. I wouldn't see any reason to get all hyped up about it, for sure. Jonathan Casillas, whatever, is a linebacker for the Giants. He's expected to test the market. I don't know. If he travels too fast, he may get injured because that's pretty much all he does in the NFL is get injured.
Yeah.
I mean, is he going to test the sporting equipment and make sure that they have good rehab? I don't understand.
Places I don't want to see him. Los
Anywhere.
Angeles.
Oh, I thought you meant. Like,
Or Florida. You know, it seems like those climates always get players hurt. I don't know what it is.
well, I mean, you could say the same for like the colder ones like Buffalo and Green Bay and stuff.
New York Giants.
Yeah, or the Giants. Yeah, let's go throw them in there.
All right. The Bears.com is reporting that Pernell McPhee, linebacker for Chicago, has been released. Nothing to see here. Let's move on. Patriots.com is reporting that David Harris, linebacker formerly from the Jets, he went over to the Patriots this season. He spent 10 years with the Jets. Didn't get that Super Bowl ring he was hoping for, and he's planning to retire.
Sorry, I laughed when you said the Jets would win the Super Bowl. I just thought that was funny. You went with the Patriots, and I got you. But time happens, man. Time gets to all of us, right? So, be sad to see him go.
Called him the Hitman.
I thought Greg Williams was the Hitman.
Oh, there's so many Hitmen.
Hey-o.
Oh, speaking of Hitman, Everybody online, I just want to take a quick aside. Watching all this tape on all these positional players, I always see the best kept secret. Paul's giving me the sign to move on. All right. Real quick. So when I'm watching all these films, they're like, oh, this is the best defensive end. This is the best defensive tackle. This is the best linebacker. This guy was a guy that I grew up on. He was always consistent, always had about 70 to 80 tackles, sometimes over 100. But it's one of those days that you hate seeing a player like this leave because there was fantasy value here, except with the Patriots this year.
Miami Herald, Lawrence Timmons is expected to be released.
I am so excited. Stephon Anthony, step right up.
Sorry for blowing out your speakers, folks. Buck is excited.
Oh, dude. Stephon Anthony. It's the Stephon Anthony show, man. Raekwon McMillan, Kiko Alonso. I'm pumped.
I mean, I told you earlier off the air, I don't know. I want to get excited for Stephon Anthony, but at the same time, I'm just like, do I get my hopes up just to be dashed, man? I feel like I'd just be letting myself down.
Dude, jump back on that train. Just ride it.
I want to. I probably will. I'll probably jump on after OTAs start.
All right. You'll be sorry.
Yeah, I love him, man. I love Stephon Anthony, man. I've always wanted him to succeed.
Yeah.
So badly. Bears.com reports that Jarrell Freeman has been released. Not a surprise there either.
He's been pretty consistent over the course of his lifetime in the NFL.
He's been one of the solid pluggers you can put in week to week.
Consistently hurt, though. That's the big thing for him.
Texans.com, Brian Cushing has been released.
Speaking of being hurt.
I've been talking about that guy. Should have been released like 2 years ago. Steroids didn't even help him. That's how bad it's been.
Yeah.
Didn't help him at all. Ian Rappaport, Mark Barron, linebacker for the Rams, is recovering from off-season shoulder surgery. Again, I love Mark Barron, man. I like watching him play. The dude is a baller when he gets out there. No, this is just a routine procedure. Yeah. Nothing to scare me away.
Those hybrid linebackers we're always talking about, the safeties that drop back or drop down and they play linebacker. Mm-hmm. They're typically better than most of the linebackers. I
feel like this year there's only a couple safeties that I really see that could play that hybrid mix. Yeah. I'm not seeing as much as I did last year in some of these guys. Mm-hmm. Which,
talking about rookies? Or?
Yeah, I'm talking about the rookies coming out. I know last year I saw a lot of guys who would probably play a hybrid role. Mm. And this year I'm just not seeing as much. And that happens. You're going to go through wanes. But some of these guys, they may surprise you.
Yeah.
They may jump up to safety and be like, I think I can do linebacker too.
Or a couple safeties that people are wanting to move out to cornerback.
Yeah, it could happen too.
Think of Fitzpatrick. All right, SiriusXM NFL is reporting that Derek Johnson, linebacker formerly of the Chiefs, may be released but wants to play in 2018. Believe he was released or no? He's still on the team.
I think he is, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that they plan on cutting. No, they did cut him. I remember reading that. They did cut him. It was a sad day, man. Guy that I grew up watching and having on quite a few of my fantasy teams.
Buck has his jersey in his closet.
No, I don't.
He does. He secretly wears a lot of Chiefs stuff.
No.
You guys don't see it. Like right here, he's wearing a Chiefs shirt. It's crazy.
I actually do have a Chiefs shirt that I wear on occasion, and I don't wear it out. And I'm going to explain the story. Paul, don't interject.
No, I got one.
You'll feel bad. All right, so one of my buddies growing up, he played football with us. The kid was a pretty good athlete. He wasn't great, but he was drinking with a lot of my buddies back home. They have this yearly festival, and he ended up getting hit by a train. So I ended up getting a Kansas City Chiefs shirt to wear in memory of him, and I like supporting the Chiefs in the preseason. That's about the only time I like watching them. Games that don't matter, or their first playoff game, because I'd like to see them finally win one.
I'm good if they don't. I'm cool with that. But no, back when I was younger, I used to have a Lions coat.
Really?
Yeah, and that was like, because that was just a coat that my mom and dad just happened to buy really cheap and just got to me. And I remember that. I even remember I left it at my grandma's house once.
Packers fan?
No, My grandma wasn't really, she was my grandma was a baseball nut, man. Like I could, even when she was in her late 80s, I could go and be like, Grandma, what's been up? She's like, oh, I watched the Orioles game last night. I was up till about 2. I'm like, dang, Grandma. Like, she never had a fan. She just loved baseball.
Yeah.
But anyway, we left and I was like, Mom, I forgot my coat. So my mom goes back and she's talking to me. Well, my mom forgets that Douglas is basically a speed trap. And
Douglas is a local city.
yeah, a very little city. Like Pizza Hut's about the biggest place there. And my mom gets a speeding ticket. And she's like, I could have just bought you a nice new coat instead of going back there to get that Lions coat. I always remember that one. Whenever I think of the Lions merchandise, that's what I think of. Just little stories about our lives.
PFF on NBC is reporting that Justin Houston, linebacker for Kansas City Chiefs, is not expected to be released, even though it would save them a ton of cash.
And we'll talk about him later, so let's just move on from that.
NBC Sports Bay Area is reporting that Reuben Foster, linebacker for San Francisco 49ers, is cooperating fully in his domestic violence and weapons case.
He didn't take his pee and go home. That's a draft deal. I hope this works out because I invested a lot in Reuben Foster, and I'm a fan of his. I think he's a really good linebacker, and I think he could be the future in San Francisco. I just need him to not do stupid things, or I don't know. I haven't read too much in this story, so I'm not going to speculate on stuff either.
Yeah, I believe you bought Reuben Foster with the 1.07 last year. Do you have any buyer's remorse, or you had to?
No, I got a player that I liked, which I ended up trading to you, in fact, up at the 103 spot. So I was fine with that.
Who was that, Paul?
To Corey Davis. I got kind of talked into it because Buck was leading me 2 or 3 different ways, and so I didn't draft who I could have drafted, but I'm okay the way it shook out. I mean, I got Kamara because no one wanted to take him, so I took him.
Interesting. I was led astray on that one, too. I really loved Kamara's tape. And I was like, hey, Paul. I was like, you know anything about this Tennessee kid? I don't watch much Tennessee football. He's like, nah, he's a system guy. I swear he told me that just so I wouldn't draft him.
I can neither confirm nor deny any of those allegations.
So you know what? From here on out, I'm not listening to anybody. I'm going to be my own self, and I'm going to draft the guys I like.
I'm just saying, if you want a real insight, I think Penny, coming out of San Diego State, is going to be a good running back. I think he's going to be a really good. If he can work on his pass catching, like that kid.
Cannot confirm. I haven't watched much offense. Been trying to pump out these defensive positional players in our premium podcast. Again, that's $4.99. Go ahead and check it out on our website or on our Twitter. We've got a link with our pinned tweet.
It's never too early to start your next season, man. It's never too early to start planning. You know, if you go into a draft and have 5 or 6 different plans, you're going to have one that shakes out, man.
Yeah, and that's really what we do is we break down why these players are good in the system, why they're bad in the system, players that we want to evaluate in a dynasty format, players we want to evaluate in a redraft format. Especially with the Combine coming up, we're going to have a Combine podcast.
Combine. I love the Combine, man. I'm telling you, free agency and the Combine are 2 of my favorite things in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And Black Monday. It's my other favorite. Penn Live reports that Tyler. Man, why do you give me the ones with the last names? Come on, man. You give me those last names. You set me up on those.
Linebacker for Pittsburgh underwent shoulder surgery. A guy that has stepped in and played on special teams, and he's played a reserve linebacker role. Really broke up quite a few big passes this season with Shazier out. A guy I don't expect to get a lot of playing time next year because the Pittsburgh Steelers have this weird obsession with drafting linebackers in the 1st or 2nd round. I expect them to draft a linebacker.
Yeah, I won't even lie. I didn't really know who that was, to be completely honest. I didn't see him enough, I guess. Once Shazier went out, I kind of stopped watching the linebackers. I was just watching the safeties.
I believe Tyler Matakevich came out of West Virginia.
Man, West Virginia gets a lot of guys with, they got, Kwiatkowski, who came out of there? Kwiatkowski?
That's what I was thinking about. Maybe
Kwiatkowski came out of there.
I don't know, the dude's ugly as hell. I don't like to make fun of people, but, geez.
He's intimidating. All right. Well, Buck looks that up. Charlotte absorber Luke Kuechly underwent shoulder surgery after the season. Not surprised on that one.
Still looking. Oh, it came out of Temple.
Temple. Not a bad school. Philadelphia area.
Denver Post is reporting that Shaq Barrett, linebacker for Denver, is expected to be a restricted free agent. Are you targeting this guy?
Probably not.
Is he a nice buy low?
Yeah, he'd definitely be a nice buy low, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's too much going on in Denver, man. I just don't know where to drop the hammer at. And really,
offensively, their
defensive.
wide
I'm
receivers
talking
that are aging,
defensively.
their D-backs that are aging, their D-backs that may get cut, their defensive lineman that's got neck problems. Where do we start?
There's one guy that I would go out and actively buy, but I'm going to save him for our segment.
All right.
Sports Day reports that Anthony Hitchens is a high priority free agent this offseason, linebacker for Dallas. Is that a high priority for Dallas to resign, or are you talking about overall?
Real life, Dallas is trying to get him back.
Dallas has to figure out where they're going to pay people. Again, we've already talked about it. Cutting ties with Dez would help. ESPN.com reports that Tamba Hali is expected to be a free agent because do they really even need him?
You don't need me still? Honestly, we saw this coming for the past 2 years. You know, it's one of those things that maybe they should have done it early. You know, they probably could have.
I mean, Frank Zombo, I thought, played well enough that he could have outplayed one of them if they'd actually started him and kept starting him instead of bringing him situationally. Philadelphia Inquirer, Nigel Bradham expects to be a high priority in free agency. Again, I think him and Graham are going to have to play off each other somehow for that contract. You know, because, again, once you win a Super Bowl, price tag goes up a little higher. A la Jenkins, after Green Bay won the Super Bowl, he wanted more money. Green Bay couldn't give him more money, and so he went to the Giants.
Not only that, but you look at all the Seahawks.
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of, in a weird way, it kind of cannibalizes itself. You know, you look at Bruce Irvin, who went to the Raiders and he got a decent paycheck. You look at Malcolm Smith, who went to the Raiders, got a decent paycheck. Now he's with the 49ers, and they don't know what they want to do with him.
Exactly.
Clarence Hill is reporting that Orlando Scandrick, a cornerback for Dallas, is expected to be traded or released.
I mean, if they can get some draft capital, I would definitely try trading him first, but they're going to have to set that up before it all starts.
Do you like this guy in fantasy?
Not really. There's other guys I'd take over. Yeah, I know, but there's still other guys I would target that's not on my team that's on other teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Raiders.com reports that Tremaine Johnson is the Raiders' #1 target in free agency from the Rams. And I like Tremaine Johnson, man. I liked a lot of his tape this year.
Yeah.
I thought he put out a good resume for being a free agent.
Yeah.
Hopefully he doesn't get what Buck calls fat cat syndrome.
I don't think he will. I mean, he's been franchise tagged, before. He's been paid. Again, with the franchise tag, you do have incentive because it is that 1 year contract. We saw Alshon Jeffrey, a guy that's historically injured, pretty much play the whole season. He may have set out partially one game, and that's about it. But something
Kirk
about
Cousins.
that, yeah.
I mean, another guy who's played great on the 1 year deals.
You risk it for the biscuit, man.
Mm-hmm. Ian Rappaport reports that Vontae Davis from Buffalo was signed to a 1 year contract, which they technically can't start until the league new year. So they could have it set up, but they can't technically sign players yet.
With the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
ESPN.com is reporting that William Gay, cornerback for Pittsburgh, may be cut to save cap space.
Makes sense. ESPN, Joe Hayden, I think that's wrong. Hayden from Pittsburgh is expected to stay with the Steelers. Again, I think Joe Hayden played really well. Buck likes to mention Madden. He had a pretty good Madden card come out back when everyone was still in the high 80s. So, I mean, I think Joe Hayden's still worth his weight.
Yeah. I liked him in Cleveland. He was hit or miss fantasy-wise, but, with the Steelers, I think the way you beat the Steelers now is over the middle, especially with Shazier gone. And honestly, that safety play has been mediocre.
I agree with you on that one. Chicago Tribune, Kyle Fuller, cornerback, may get franchise tagged. I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, everyone tries to use their franchise tag, and that's really one of the only players for the Bears that needs to probably be franchise tagged.
Yeah, and his brother, Kendall Fuller, was traded from the Washington Redskins to the Kansas City Chiefs for Alex Smith.
Oh, Alex Smith with the Redskins?
Yep.
Wow.
You didn't hear about that?
Yeah, I did.
I was about to say, man. You watch ESPN more than me.
So I was watching tape for our premium podcast, which we'll be shooting after this. Again, just $4.99, and I was
you get 12 months of it.
Yeah, 12 months, whole year, man. Can't beat that deal. But I was watching a guy who's going to be in that list play against Texas Tech, and I started getting distracted. I was like, I'm just watching Mahomes play now.
Yeah.
He was just throwing everywhere. I'm like,
Dude.
I see it now.
Yeah, he's fun to watch, man.
I just thought it was hilarious.
Since we're off the subject already. So last season, I was trying to get Patrick Mahomes. I was trying to trade up because I knew a Chiefs fan was about to draft. Nobody would give me the nod. Everybody wanted a player then. Moral of the story, go ahead and trade before the draft even starts because it is tough to get back up there, especially whenever there's a player in somebody's mind. It's tough to take that card or that vote away from those guys to get those players. I wound up getting Deshaun Watson in the second round. As long as his knees hold up, I think I made better off on that deal.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I liked him. He won me a lot of games in Yahoo before he got hurt. All right. Vic
Carucci is reporting that E.J. Gaines, cornerback for Buffalo, is not expected to be re-signed. Again, he was traded for Sammy Watkins.
Yes, he was part of that deal.
Really didn't play up to the standard that they expected. Honestly,
I mean, especially with them bringing in Vontae Davis.
Yeah.
You know.
He was injured a lot of last season. I think he was injured before the season even started.
Yeah, he had a little bit of injuries going in, but I mean, he cleared everything when he got over there. So
yeah, and Tre'Davious White pretty much blew him away last season.
Yeah,
he's a fantasy stud. Again, we talk about this when we cover our cornerbacks and how we like drafting rookies at the cornerback spot, continually cycling them. Contrarian thought that a lot of people are not on. I'm trying to trade Adoree Jackson. Reason being, I think that he gets noticed a little bit more next year, even though he got picked on throughout the last 5 games of the season. I still think that he's a guy that I'm going to be shopping because he may have played at his most valuable spot last season. What are your thoughts on Adoree Jackson, Paul?
I could see the value in trading him. I mean, I think eventually you have to go ahead and just keep one of them rookies and see if you can pick the right one to groom.
Yeah.
It's just, wait and see. I took a shot on Shaq Griffin, and I'm hoping that pays out for me.
Yeah.
So I think it does. I saw enough there, and I went back and watched his tape from college, and I thought there was enough there that have him stick. So sometimes you just got to risk it for guys you think are going to be good. Sometimes your gut decision comes out to be your best decisions.
Yeah.
I've taken gut shots too, and they've worked out, and I've taken gut shots that have been horribly wrong.
Yeah.
But it happens. That's the game of fantasy football, and if you can't have fun doing that every once in a while, fantasy football may be too much for you. You got to have fun.
Fantasy football may be too much for you.
Yeah, some people can't handle just making gut calls. They have to feel like they have to go and ask, Barry every time for a question, or they have to go online and try to put in, should I start him or him? Dude, just go with what your gut says.
Yeah.
You can, statistics help, but they can also get in your head and mess you up.
Yep. Jason LaCanfora is reporting that Sua Cravens, safety for Washington, may be traded. The team is trying to see what they can get. A guy that's battled concussions and headaches the past couple of years. Thought about leaving the NFL. Paul's actually an owner of him in our Dynasty League, so I will let him take it.
Oh, man. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to bring the whole show down now. I love Sua Cravens, man. In college, the kid is a great athlete. I feel like he's just getting in his own head sometimes. I'm really hoping if Redskins do trade him, the team that trades for him obviously is going to want him, and maybe they can get him motivated for football. I understand the concussion aspect and the headaches, but it comes down to, do you want to play this game? Yeah. And if you do not want to play this game, do not go out there because you will get yourself hurt.
Yeah.
If you want to play the game, go out and play it. But I think if a team's willing to take a shot on him, I still think he can hit. I'm going to keep him until I absolutely can't keep a roster spot.
Mm.
I like it, man. He's one of those gut guys.
Yeah.
I've seen enough where if he can get a chance and it can get going, I think he'll play good. Chiefs.com reports that Ron Parker has been released. Again, you're going to see a lot of stuff coming out of Kansas City. I always feel like the players who play there are super old. I don't know why I always think that.
I don't know. You know, one thing I've been thinking about with all the Chiefs movement, they got a new GM, okay? And when a new GM comes in, they like to mix things up and kind of make it their own. So at the end of the day, it's going to be his team, and I don't know if all these moves are really going to add up to a difference. Do you, Paul?
I feel like they're getting younger, but also not resetting. And what I mean is I feel like they're trying a 2-year window. Like, get Mahomes in, get him some wins and losses under his belt, hopefully more wins and losses, obviously. But get that part started and then add some pieces as you go through the draft, trade these players away, get some picks, keep adding, because that's what GMs like to do. They like to go in and draft the guys that they like. And once they start getting those draft picks, in 2 years, you're probably going to see more of an outcome. Yeah. I still think they can still contend because I think the AFC is a little bit weaker still. And so I feel like they can still get in that wild card or maybe win the West. But, you know, the West right now, I think the Chargers, it may be their time to rise up. You know, this is going to be, I want to say do or die with Phillip Rivers. Like, it's getting to that point where I feel like something needs to start happening with the Chargers. So, you know, if you're talking with the 2-year plan, you may see the Chiefs try to move some pieces around. And that's not bad for fantasy either. Yeah. You know, because you're going to get some young players. You know, we talk about drafting cornerbacks who are rookies just for that reason. You know, if they go out and draft some, it may not be a bad play.
Yeah, and the Chiefs moving on from their starting safety. It's kind of a nod to what they want to do in the draft and what they want to do in free agency.
Sorensen, they feel like Sorensen and Eric Berry are still going to be the options.
As much as I love Sorensen and I pounded the table for him during the season, I don't think he's a guy that you can ride with throughout the season as your starting safety.
But he's still going to get you some points.
Oh, yeah.
You know. And there's always a chance that Eric Berry gets hurt and he ends up taking over again, you know.
Yeah.
So it's not bad to have in your back pocket.
And again, with the Chiefs, I kind of feel like I like to make a lot of trades. I usually average about 10 per season. In a dynasty, in a redraft, I pulled my numbers back a little bit. But in the past 3 seasons, I've been averaging about 20 trades per season. And what I mean with the Chiefs is I feel like that's what they're doing right now, is you can get on kind of this trade high where you just start trading and you want to trade again. It makes you more apt to trade. So I really think the Chiefs they're on that high, and I expect them to slow down a little bit as we approach the draft and free agency.
Yeah. Astute observation, my friend. Ian Rappaport reports that TJ Ward is not expected to return. I'm not surprised by that.
Where do you think he goes?
I don't know. Whoever signs him for cheap.
Chiefs?
Could be anybody, honestly. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of people who can use a veteran safety.
Yeah, that happened
Saxonville
moments before they cut Parker.
Yeah.
You know.
Could happen. Bears, Quentin Dimps has been released, safety for Chicago. Ian Rappaport reports that Kurt Coleman, one of the guys who's just been there forever, has been released. This is not a surprising move to me. I think they're going to probably ride with Jarius Byrd and hope that he stays healthy. I still think that gives a bump to Mike Adams.
You think they try and draft somebody here?
Oh, yeah, I think they're going to try to fill that hole for sure. They're going to get someone in there young. I have no doubt about that. Chiefs and Rams. Marcus Peter has been traded for a 4th and a 2nd.
That 4th being in 2018 and that 2nd being in 2019.
I thought, yeah, 2019. I keep thinking this year's 2017 still. But, so, yeah, again, we already talked about the trade capital, and that's kind of what I factored into it. You know, my new boss, he's a hardcore Chiefs fan, of course, like everyone is, I know. Well, actually, one of the guys I work with is from Philly, so he's actually a Philadelphia fan. Not a nut, but he likes Philly. Yeah. But we were talking about the other day, he's like, I'm so mad they traded Peters. I'm like, why are you that mad? I was like, honestly, I know they traded a good player, but when a coaching staff kind of gives up on a guy, they want to get rid of him and see what they can get. And they got, I feel like, 2 good picks. And again, how you value this trade is what they get with that 4th and what they get with that 2nd. What are they going to get with it? If those guys pan out, then obviously that's a good trade.
Yeah, in this draft, we talk about it a lot in our premium podcast, how we see a lot of slot corners. And when you got Emerson, which a guy I'm not high on, I thought ever since he got paid, he's played like garbage, but him going to a 1-year deal may give him some incentive. And then moving on from Revis, and who else did they just add? Oh, Kendall Fuller, we just talked about him. I think Kendall Fuller gives you that outside containment. You put him on the opposite side of Barry, I think you got something there. But for these Chiefs, I think if they grabbed a slot corner, I think they could be all right. ESPN.com is reporting that Eli Apple, cornerback from the New York Giants, is expected to be traded to the Titans. This is scuttlebutt, and we haven't really seen anything. Again, this is before the Marcus Peters trade, and that was about a week ago.
I like Eli Apple, man. I do. I've gained more faith in him as the Giants have lost faith.
How big is this hill that you're dying on for Eli Apple?
It's a medium-sized hill.
Is it a little bit bigger than the one we were talking about earlier?
Oh, yeah. The other one's a pitching mound.
Okay.
Like, really not much of a hill. More like 3 steps and I'm off.
Is this
I
one
like
more
Eli
like
Apple.
a Teletubbies home, like you can live on? You're
I've
like a
never really
little
seen
bit
one.
excited. You're in your fluffy coat. You're walking around. You got a smile on your face. You're like, yeah, I want Eli Apple. Or no?
I like Eli Apple, man. I don't know why everyone's so dead set against him. I honestly think a change of scenery may change him around completely.
You know, I think there were a lot of problems with Eli Apple that we saw in Green Bay with Darius Randall.
I knew you were going to bring him up just because of Twitter today. How did I know that was going to come up?
Do you think there's any connection with the team losing faith in him and his antics off the field?
The thing is Green Bay got faith back in him because he kind of refocused a little bit and then came back and played really well. So I think that's a little bit different from Eli Apple. You know,
both players are up and down throughout the course of the season.
You know, Demarius Randall hasn't found that niche to put it together week to week to week. And that's okay because, honestly, Green Bay secondary as a whole couldn't put together week after week after week. If we're being completely honest, you know, that's something that just happens. You know, you have Dom Capers who should have been let go years ago, and that may have changed some stuff.
Do you think Eli Apple has the capability or has played consistent week to week? Or do you see the similarity between Randall and him?
I see Randall as a better shutdown guy. If we're talking,
you're talking about man or zone.
If we're talking apples to apples, better zone. I mean, man. Sometimes Randall gets beaten on man, but I think sometimes, honestly, I feel like if he just got out of his own head again, Sue Cravens type of stuff, Demarius Randall will be a better player. You know, it's hard because he wasn't a 4-year starter at Arizona State. He was a basketball player mainly. So, again, you know, mental toughness is a tricky thing. Some guys have it. Some guys have to learn it. Yeah. So, both these guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of excited now that the season's over, to see Eli Apple develop. A guy that I think is better in man. One of the better man corners in the league that's up and coming. Not necessarily overall. But I would like to see him change scenery because they have definitely burned out the coaching staff with his antics. New Orleans Times is reporting that Kenny Vaccaro, a safety for New Orleans, is likely to be dropped. We kind of saw the writing on the wall. They talked about this the past 2 years. They brought him down and played him in the nickel. I thought he looked really good in the season, but it doesn't look like that he solidified that role. And with the uptick in Von Bell's stats and his play, and the poor tackling by Marcus Williams, a guy that played pretty good all season but missed that tackle.
Who got a fat payday after that missed tackle. At least the Vikings didn't go to the Super Bowl, so we're all a little bit better off.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Vaccaro? Are you buying him?
No, he's going to be a filler. Honestly, I could see Vaccaro going to the Panthers. The Panthers seem to like to take safeties from New Orleans.
Yeah.
Could be a fit there.
Once you started saying that kind of made sense. NFL.com is reporting that Earl Thomas, safety from Seattle, is likely to receive a contract extension rather than be traded.
I don't want to talk about Seattle anymore, man. If you want to, go ahead. Mm-hmm. I feel like we've talked about them.
Quick summary: the team's imploding because of infighting, and everybody's looking for that big payday after the Super Bowl.
Because with that offensive line, they ain't making it back to the Super Bowl anytime soon.
Honestly, that's where they need to invest their draft picks.
Maybe Earl Thomas can learn how to play offensive line.
Or wide receivers. Russell Wilson wouldn't have to run around as often if wide receivers were open.
That's true. Very true. Christian Kirksey.
And they're potentially going to lose their tight end.
Yeah. I feel like they should have probably tried to trade him a year ago. They should have never traded for him in the first place, to be completely very honest here.
I mean, didn't they trade a 5th-round draft pick to get him?
I think they traded a little bit higher than that.
No, I think it was 5th or 7th. Was it 7th?
They gave up, but they took on a big contract when they took him too.
Well, yeah.
That was part of it. They killed themselves in cap room. And I like Jimmy Graham. He just didn't. I knew as soon as they said it. I remember watching it and I said, "This is not going to work, man. He's not that dude. He's not a blocker. That's never been his shtick."
No. Mike Garafolo is reporting that LaMarcus Joyner, a safety from LA Rams, is likely to receive a franchise tag over Sammy Watkins. What are your thoughts on this? Would you rather franchise tag Sammy Watkins or LaMarcus Joyner?
It depends on what the Rams are going to do in the draft. I feel like if they're okay letting their new acquisition go, then so be it. But I still like Sammy Watkins.
Yeah.
More than Kelvin Benjamin. And I liked Kelvin Benjamin. I drafted him very high.
Yeah. Weight has been a problem for him.
Oh, yes. That's why I traded him away off my team.
Did you trade him to PK?
Yeah.
I know he's listening. PK.
Hey, I was okay with that trade, man, because I was looking for something different, and I was already, my wide receiver core has just imploded upon itself. I have one good one, and right now I'm trying to trade him too, so
yeah.
I'm dying on the running backs.
Let's take a quick aside and talk about league mates. We want to thank PK. He's one of the more active guys in our Dynasty League. Acquiring people like that off Twitter or friends that you meet, it's really nice to have people like him because he kind of gives you that flair, and he's always stirring up the pot in a joking manner. He's pretty sarcastic, but that's why we love him.
He's okay.
Yeah, he's okay.
Decent at best.
He's not like a carry your team in Call of Duty zombies.
He may fall asleep during the middle of zombies, but we'll see how that goes.
But shout out to PK. Hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for repping us. We love it.
He makes smart choices, folks.
Philly Voice is reporting that Patrick Robinson, a cornerback for Philly that they got from the 49ers, is expected to walk. A guy that I like. I thought this was a good trade whenever they made it in season. I'll kind of blow through these guys, and then we'll move right into our risers and fallers that was requested by one of the fans. If there is something that you want to talk to us about, go ahead and send us an email. It's IDP Fantasy Empire @gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter. That's @IDP Empire. We're always willing to respond. We love it. We feed off of it, and we like talking to you guys. It kind of gives us something to talk about that's not something that we already had planned. It makes us add a little bit of time onto what we've already got planned, but it continually molds this ball that we're all trying to make. Something that I'm always thinking about is the essence of the ball, and how do you get that ball the perfect circle. And nothing's perfect in this world. You have all these draft antics that you're trying to find the best player, and as you're trying to find the best player, you're trying to find his faults, and that's something that you want to work on moving forward. So ESPN.com is reporting that Tony Jefferson, a safety for Baltimore, is likely to get a restructured contract. Nothing really to take from this fantasy-wise. It's more of a real-life news nugget that's nice to hear. I like hearing that whenever I'm listening to other podcasts. They talk about guys that are going to be picked up or guys that are going to be dropped. I think that's something that's nice to put in the back of your mind and move forward with it. And it kind of tells you, especially if you're playing in a dynasty, if it's something that you want to move on from or if it's something that you kind of want to move into. Raiders.com is reporting that David Amerson, cornerback from Oakland, has been released and signed to a 1-year deal by the Chiefs. A guy, again, I talked about him earlier. 2 years ago, we paid him. He's played down to his paycheck, or ever since he got paid. And fantasy-wise, he's hit or miss week to week. Mike Rice is reporting that Devin McCourty, a safety for New England, got shoulder surgery this offseason. Nothing really to take here. Again, this is common. Ian Rappaport is reporting that Cam Chancellor, a safety from Seattle, intends to play this season after a neck injury. A guy that I'm trying to move out of. I think he's a good player. I think he's a good fantasy asset. Him and Earl Thomas kind of go back and forth year to year on who's better. But both put up positive numbers just because there hasn't been good linebacking play outside of Bobby Wagner.
Oh, it really hasn't been.
KJ Wright, but KJ Wright is not a guy that I'm really excited about going forward.
Bobby's been carrying that team.
Yeah.
Put the team on his back, though.
Ian Rappaport is reporting that Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, cornerback for the Giants, maybe cut this offseason. A guy that's hit or miss week to week, situational plug and play. You buying into him, Paul?
No. I would rather take a chance on Apple than I would on him, to be fair.
All right, as we're moving forward towards the draft, we're going to be talking about those guys in our premium podcast. But a guy that really made a huge bump for himself in the draft process is Byron Jones a couple of years ago. A safety for Dallas is expected to move to cornerback. What are your thoughts on that?
I hate it.
You hate it? Really?
Yeah, because
I think
that
may be a
bumps.
more natural fit.
I feel like that bumps Awuzie.
You think so?
And I like Awuzie. I drafted him, man.
Well, with Scandrick possibly leaving, I think Awuzie still got a spot.
I hope so, man, because I'm going to have to make a decision here soon on our taxi squads,
Yeah.
and I'm really hoping that I can put him in and rely on him.
I'll talk to you after the pod, but I think there is another guy that's interested in Awuzie, or was interested in him.
I do
in
like
the draft
him.
process.
Yeah, I do like Awuzie. I liked him calling him out of Colorado. I thought he was decent.
I think this is a great segue for Awuzie. Are you going to go ahead and trade him, or are you thinking about keeping him?
I
There's
don't
a
know,
lot
man.
of risk there.
Yeah, I don't know. Cornerbacks have been a liability for my team.
Mm-hmm.
Again, during the season, I was down to 2 cornerbacks pretty much, and that was Xavier Howard for the Dolphins. And then I had someone else who I don't even remember. That's how well I managed my cornerback. And that's why I went out and traded in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
So I went out and made some plays to try to make a deeper playoff run, which I still lost because of the Jaguars' defense. So it happens. And I'm not even one in our league who complained about team defenses. I was fine with it. I lost. It happens.
Yeah. For me, I'm a betting man, and I like to trade in a position like this. If there's uncertainty, I like to be risk averse. Just get rid of the player, try and get capital elsewhere. So then, especially a draft pick, if you're not in a redraft league and you're playing in a dynasty, if I can get a draft pick, I can take that token and cash it in and get whatever the heck I want later. Kind of structure what I want, and as the draft board falls to me, I can kind of plan on what's left and make that executive decision. ESPN.com is reporting that Eric Berry, a safety for the Kansas City Chiefs, is expected to be ready week 1 after his Achilles injury. I love this guy. I went and watched the game with our other buddy, Kenny. He may be listening, he may be not. But he's a big Chiefs fan, and really the only guy I go watch Chiefs games
He's a realistic Chiefs fan.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
But Eric Berry is one of those guys that's been hurt or had the unfortunately battled cancer and won. I like his story. I like the guy's nature. He's actually talked to one of my buddy's kids, and whenever they interacted, he told the kid, he was like, hey, listen to your dad, be a good kid. He was like, if you want to make it, because the little kid obviously wanted to play in the NFL. He said, you need to listen to your dad, and you need to take everything he says seriously, and he'll help you get to where I'm at, And I like hearing positive stories like that, especially from some of these guys that are idols to children.
And I like to throw in those tidbits like in our premium podcasts about all these rookies.
Yeah.
These guys who, we talk about the red flag issues, but I like talking about the guys who are doing positive stuff and the guys you feel like are going to be good players because it comes around tenfold in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I really love what they're doing with the Walter Payton stuff, talking about good deeds and whatnot. All those guys who are nominated get to wear that Walter Payton patch for the rest of their careers.
Yeah, that is.
I think that's
awesome.
super cool, man. I think that's an awesome gesture for people. All right, next up, Denver Post reports that Aqib Talib could be released by the Broncos to save cap. He may be out on the street snatching chains, so we'll see how that works. Yeah.
Who would you like to see pick him up?
I just don't like Aqib Talib, so I hate to say I don't care, but in this situation, I think, honestly, Kansas City could pick him up and use him, but,
You think so, though?
I don't see why
They
not.
just spent a bunch of money on Kendall Fuller.
I don't think it'll happen, but I'm saying a team that's kind of chopped up right now. But again, I'm tired of talking about the Chiefs today. And that's not a homer thing. There's just a lot of Chiefs news.
Yeah. We've got ESPN.com reporting that Casey Hayward, cornerback for the Chargers, is expected to be extended.
I hope not. I want him to go back to Green Bay. Green Bay should have never released him. To be fair, they should have signed him when they had the chance. I'm still kind of bitter about that one.
We've got the Detroit Free Press reporting that Quandre Diggs, the safety for Detroit, may get moved from cornerback to safety. Again, he played cornerback and was moved to safety at the end of the season.
And played really well.
Yeah, he played in the absence of Tavon Wilson. I still think Tavon Wilson is a better athlete.
Yeah, I think it's a risk. I think it's really risk averse to trade him and get some draft capital out of it.
Really? Paul's taking a dig at me.
No, I'm not. I completely agree. I mean, you got to be risk averse in the guys you just don't know where their position's at.
Oh, okay. You are saying that it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because there is a lot of uncertainty. If they do move him to safety, that means one of the other guys has got to get hurt, and I'd rather have Tavon Wilson at the end of the day.
Bob Condata reports that Richard Sherman expects to be back in 2018, represented himself in negotiations. Of course, because this dude just likes to constantly talk and talk and talk.
A lot of people
talk,
don't like Richard Sherman. I love his attitude.
I do too.
his brilliance.
There's
He's
just
a wordsmith,
sometimes
man.
sometimes he gets on my nerves, I can understand why people are infighting in Seattle.
Yeah.
Chiefs.com, of course. Darrelle Revis, cornerback for Kansas City, has been released. I thought that would happen after the Kendall Fuller trade.
Yeah.
I think, you probably thought the same thing once they brought in Fuller, that he might be released.
I think he was released before, but
I think that was something. No, I think he was released after. I thought, but I'm not 100% sure anymore.
But
It's been a while.
it's nice to see. I think he may own an island because of all the nice contracts he got in his career, but I don't believe he's the island anymore.
No, he's more of the. Dang it! Now I'm trying to think. He's more of a dock on the edge of the bay. Everyone kind of visits every once in a while and then just leaves.
Uses them a little bit.
Yeah, gets a little bit of usage, like a Caribbean cruise.
Yeah, that's why you got to carry a gun. All right. Before we move into risers and fallers, I want to go ahead and give a big shout out to Connor Green, Brendan Armour, and John Witt. Those are the 3 new riders that we brought into the fold. These guys are great. Go ahead and check them out on IDPFantasyEmpire.com.
Got some new gladiators for the Coliseum, boys.
Yep.
Welcome in.
Yep. I think they're going to be writing weekly articles.
Yeah, Buck did most of the talking to these guys, so if they've actually listened to my beautiful voice. I was with Buck and we talked about everything. I mean, these guys had some really good takes on these players that we had them do. I'm excited to see what they come up with during the season and moving forward. I think these guys have some really interesting takes on stuff, and I like that.
And that's one thing I told these guys. I was like, hey, we like to see you guys go out on a limb. If there are players that you like, go ahead and talk about them, but own it. If you talk about them, fully believe in what you say, because that goes a long way in fantasy. I like seeing, especially if it's a new writer or a new presenter, I like hearing what they have to say, and then I like testing it later. And then once I test it, I'm like, man, that guy, he found something. There's something there that I didn't see. And I really respect that, and I respect these guys, and I think they're going to go far.
I completely agree with you, man. I'm with you. All right, now we're moving into the big segment. I won't even give you a drum roll because it's too awesome. We're going to talk about risers and fallers. So, again, pretty pumped about this part. Now, what we got to do is talk about kind of what we went through to get this list. We just kind of sat around, round table crisscross applesauce and just kind of talk these guys out and figured out really what we liked, what we didn't like. Again, I feel like our risers list is longer than our fallers list.
Yeah, and that's natural.
And I think fallers will also, they'll kind of change during OTAs. You'll kind of see these shifts because there's a lot of new coaching staffs on a lot of these guys.
Not only that, but Paul talks about the progression to that point. But one thing he's talking about is the draft and free agency. And that's a big impact to where these teams stand. And you saw all this news that we presented to you guys, and that's 2 weeks worth of news. So once free agency hits, once the draft hits, that's going to be quite a bit of news on just a weekly basis.
And we haven't really talked about it fully yet, but we may be doing just some small, tiny casts, some little 15 minutes or so. Just bring in, hit some stuff real quick, and jump out. Just kind of keep you guys updated.
Yeah, maybe on like a weekly basis, we're going to have a free podcast. But again, our premium podcast does cover the heady, in-depth stuff that I like hearing from a fantasy website.
The stuff you're going to need to know, man.
That, I mean, for good reason, we kind of withhold.
Yeah. Again, it's only $4.99, so jump in, you get the whole year. And you're going to get a lot of stuff throughout the year that's really going to help you win championships, and that's what this is all about. Putting gold in your pocket, man.
Yeah, and we've got our draft kit coming up. I believe it's going to be right after the real-life draft.
We're shooting for May, the beginning of May. So
yeah, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Just hearing back from all the people that talked about it last season, they said they really loved it, and they thought it was better than anything else that they've seen in the industry.
And this isn't us just making it up. It's straight reviews that we got in emails and stuff we got just on Twitter. So people who actually bought it really enjoyed it.
And while we're at it, go ahead and, if you're on iTunes, go ahead and leave us a review. That helps us get seen by other people. That helps the production quality sound a lot better. And it enhances our website.
All right, moving into these risers and fallers. Do we want to kind of tackle risers first, or we want to go fallers
first?
Let's
talk about the risers.
Okay.
With the risers, again, some of these are marginal. Some of these are drastic risers. And we'll just talk through them.
We'll kind of gauge them, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, first one up on our list is Derek Barnett. He's going to be entering his second year, coming out of Tennessee, playing for the Eagles. Got that big fumble recovery in the playoffs, or in the Super Bowl. With him, we kind of talked about it. Derek Barnett, I think we'll see not maybe a drastic rise, but I think this is a guy who's going to start getting more snaps, and he's going to be a guy who you may see get a little bit more playing time, and that's really what you want to see at the end of the day, is him being able to really hone his craft. I still remember when he went into the combine last year and was sick, when he was running his 40 and doing all that, and the guy's a fighter, and I like fighters, man. I'm all on that train.
Paul, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. I know you really wanted to get him in our Dynasty League. You ended up getting him in our auction league.
Mm-hmm.
But Derek Barnett and Bradley Chubb, who do you got?
Ooh. If Bradley Chubb goes to the Colts, like it's being projected right now, I would... Playing time, Chubb is going to win in Indianapolis. Does the rookie put it all together and is able to destroy? I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard to gauge these guys' impact because typically, the star defensive ends don't really show up until year 3. Mm-hmm. And that's when they really start producing. So, I mean, we look at Myles Garrett taking another step next year, same type of guy. Will it be marginal? So, I mean, rookies usually have an impact, but not a super fantasy impact. So, right now I'm leaning towards Barnett. And the simple reason is I don't know what I'm going to expect. I still think he's going to go to the Colts. I think the Colts will be smart to take him at their position.
If he does go to the Colts, Bradley Chubb, I think that he's going to have a harder time just because the mobility of the quarterbacks in his division versus the quarterbacks in the NFC East. Almost said West. But I think that they're more pocket passers, and it's going to create more opportunity for Derek Barnett. And honestly, I don't know. I love rookies. I love getting excited for them. Again, we talk about this in evaluation of draft picks because the closer we get to the draft, the more excited we get for them, the more likely we are to overinflate them. But I think Derek Barnett proved that he could be an NFL talent last season, especially with his rookie season.
Yeah, and another guy who's going to fit the same boat, next guy on our risers list, is Hassan Reddick. What do you think?
I think just because of the performance that he had last season and the lack of starts makes him an easy candidate for this. I think that he's an easy riser.
New coaching staff coming in, I think that helps his case. I think he's really going to be able to perform for him, and I feel like they're really going to fall in love with him all over again like the Bruce Arians coaching staff did.
Yeah. And that defense is going to be fast.
Mm-hmm. I believe, yeah.
You get Marcus Golden back. You get Robert Kimdiche blowing shit up. What is Paul doing? You get Robert Kimdiche blowing stuff up. And you got Hassan Reddick, Deion Buchanan running around. You got Tyrann Mathieu creating havoc. Patrick Peterson blowing stuff up on the outside. Really, I like that. I like Hassan Reddick there. The next guy I may disagree with, but go ahead, Paul.
Nick Vigil, linebacker for Cincinnati. The reason I have him is because I have his counterpart on my father's list, and that would be Vontaze
Perfect.
I have him on my father's list. No, I was pausing just for dramatic effect.
Okay.
Sorry. Buck always makes fun of me because I accidentally missay his name sometimes.
First set.
Yeah. I think it's better, but I think Nick Vigil had an injury year. He was injured quite a bit, and that really hurt Cincinnati. It really hurt them, and that was something hard to watch. Especially a guy who's on my team and a guy who I drafted. I picked him up in free agency 2 years ago before he really started making plays, and I took a hunch. On him, and it played out.
Yep.
So I think right now he needs to propel himself into that top 10 and stay there. And I feel like this year could be the year for him. I think Perfect is going to take a step down. I just feel like it's natural because he's been getting hurt a lot too.
Yeah.
The guy's been a beast. He shows up for Steelers games every year. Like those are the games you will want to play him in. But then after that, he kind of fades away sometimes. And I think Vigil picks up that slack.
Yeah, I would take the counter. I like Perfect a lot better, which wouldn't make him a riser or a faller. And really, you could look at any of these linebackers that did get a starting role last season, and we expect them to be drafted. Doing this before the draft and before free agency kind of makes it a little bit tougher to find those fallers, like we talked about earlier. But Nick Vigil, I'm not high on him next year until the draft, until free agency. So if you
I just see what's around him, man, and I see that there's not that much. You got Minter, and you got Ray, and you got Evans.
Ray's the stud when he comes in. He's not like next world.
He didn't play that well coming in last year.
He
had a decent game.
He gets you average stats.
Yeah,
week to week, which makes him very consistent. I know what I'm getting from him. If I'm pairing him with like Luke or Bobby Wagner or somebody like that, then it's nice to know that I'm going to get baseline for him.
All right, next guy up is McKinney from the Texans. Again, this comes with the now cutting of Brian Cushing. I think this guy has already played very well, but I think now he takes a major step in being the one guy on that linebacking core. You mentioned Cunningham. I believe in Cunningham as well. I just think that McKinney, this is going to be the next step. Mississippi State kid, and I think he takes his next big step in leadership. I think he's already a vocal leader. I think it just fills out with tackles.
Yeah, I could see that. Me, if I'm betting, though, I'm going to put my money on McKinney.
Thank you for agreeing with me. We move on, next segment.
I'm going to put my money on Cunningham just because he's at a lower cost, and I think it's easier to acquire him than McKinney.
Okay. All right, next one, Alex Anzalone, linebacker for New Orleans.
Yep. Where did he go to college?
The U?
No, he went to Florida.
Close enough.
That's all I have to say about that. For real, I hate Florida players. It seems like they're always hurt, man. Gerard Davis, watch out, man.
The one thing that Buck and I can agree on is Florida, and the fact that we don't like players from there. Percy Harvin.
I love their talent. I think they're great players. I just don't want to risk my money especially if you're playing fantasy for money, I don't want to put my money into Alex Anzalone. I think he's a great talent. I think he adds a lot of speed to that defense.
If he can stay healthy, doesn't he raise his level of play? And again, I'm fine scratching some of these guys.
No.
I just think he's going to be a riser over what he did last year.
Oh, of course.
And
Of course.
the linebacking core I feel like is still really wide open in New Orleans.
But the assumption is that he plays every game. You know?
Hey, sometimes you got to take a risk. Gut check.
And he's one of those guys that...
I thought he played good in the spurts he was in.
All right,
if he can continually do it, he'll be fine.
If you don't have him, you have 10 rounds to draft rookies in. What round are you trading for him?
6th.
6th? That's about where I'd trade for him.
Yeah. 5th at the high end if I really, really want him.
So are you talking about, say we stratify, what that means is you create different tiers for the players. You've got the top, you got the middle, you've got the bottom tier.
I put him in middle.
Okay. Yep, that's right where I put him.
All right, next one up is Stephon Anthony.
I am going to beat this table all offseason. This guy will blow up. Just give him a starting job. If he takes that starting job, Kiko Alonso is going to lose tackles.
Oh, you're waiting for me to interject because I completely agree with everything you're saying.
I just see Paul nodding his head. I'm like,
yep.
Say something, Paul.
No, I completely agree with you, man. I'm right there. We've talked about him so much, and he needs to get it. And I love Kiko. I think those two could be great together.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see it. Make it happen, Miami. Stop disappointing us.
That defense is going to be on the field quite a bit. Stephon Anthony, better, worse, or the same as Deion Jones? If given the starting job.
Worse.
Worse? By a lot? By a little?
I don't know. It's been a while since he's been out there, man.
I think he's top 15. Hands down. Top 15. He starts every single game. I'm buying in on this dude. I've already got him. I got him off the waiver wire because somebody dropped him. I have had him on my bench all last season and part of the season before.
Yeah, I'm the same way as Sue Cravens, man. But I know we haven't seen as much from him, blah, blah, blah. But
so we talk about hills, right, that we're going to die on. Mine is Mount McKinley, bro. I am dying on this hill.
I love Stephon Anthony. I really do. I drafted Ryan Shazier right after Buck drafted him the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
All right, next one up is it's the Kansas City linebackers. All of them. And we're talking about guys who are going to be left in that massive pile of nothing that is now Kansas City linebacking core.
All right, are we talking like more inside or outside? Because we got KPL, we got Reggie Ragland, we have Ramik Wilson, we also have Justin Houston. Maybe.
Yeah, that's a big,
he's battled a lot of injuries too.
Yeah, he really has. He's battled quite a bit.
So what is your one KC linebacker? Put $100 down, get $1,000 back. Who are you doing it with?
Jesus. I want to say Ragland with my heart, but my head.
And why? Why Ragland?
Because I've liked Ragland, man. It's one of those guys that I liked him in college. I've liked him when he was at Buffalo. I thought he didn't get a fair shake there, to be completely honest. But I think Buffalo's linebacking core for years hasn't been that great, besides when they had Nick Barnett. I think that was the last time they were really good at linebacking.
Yeah.
I just don't know if he fits the Kansas City stuff. He came in and played well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't put much faith in Kansas City linebackers ever.
Yeah.
That's just not a team that I want to draft linebackers from. I never have, probably never will until they get a stud.
Yeah.
I just don't do it.
Derek Johnson was a stud for a long time for them.
Yeah.
But we saw his wheels kind of come off. So I'm going to do something that we didn't even talk about. I'm going to put 50 down on Ramik Wilson. I'm going to put 50 down on Reggie Ragland. And the reason being is I think...
I didn't know we could hedge our bets. I thought we had to put 100 on one.
Oh, you didn't think about that, though.
Chopping up our Vegas bets here.
So Reggie Ragland, he offers you high tackle numbers. He doesn't really offer you anything else except maybe forced fumbles. Okay, Ramik Wilson, I believe he's the more dynamic player. If you play in a high-scoring league for big plays like interceptions, touchdowns, safeties, sacks, all that, I think he offers more upside in those leagues. And both of those are going to be dependent on your scoring format And it's really going to come down to what the Kansas City Chiefs draft. I know this has been a position of need for the past couple of years. Them shoring up the cornerbacks. I mean, it may be shaky cornerback.
And if you want to get insight on linebackers, the easiest way is to sign up for our premium podcast. You know, we're going to be talking about linebackers. We've already covered one part of our class. We're going to be covering another one soon.
Yeah, we covered outside linebackers. We're about to cover defensive ends in this next podcast, cornerbacks, and defensive tackles.
You mean safeties.
Inside linebackers and safeties after this podcast airs. So I think they get a safety to fill Ron Parker's spot. I think they get an inside linebacker and they get an outside linebacker.
I could see him going heavy. I still think they're going to pop a wide receiver in there, though.
Wide receiver, yep. And those are the 4 needs that they have. How many draft picks do they have? I know they got 2 picks.
I don't know. I know Dallas and Green Bay scored the most draft picks given out, which Green Bay does every year, so I'm not surprised.
Yep.
We always get the most. Dallas is actually up there, too, with us and getting the most draft picks from that, the compensatory picks.
So, if you could hedge your bets, who would your bets be on, and what are the prices that you pay?
I'd go 75 on Ragland, 25 on
Ramik.
Yeah, Ramik.
Yep. All right. Yeah, I think Ramik's a great cover linebacker that is not appreciated enough in the fantasy world and in real life. I thought one of their biggest problems was continually putting in a run stopper instead of putting Ramik Wilson in last season, which would have made more dynamic plays for them. Next guy up is Danny Trevathan. We saw Jarrell Freeman leave. Danny Trevathan is really young, really fast, struggles with injuries, but I like this guy. He was really solid in Denver, and I think he offers a lot of opportunity for the Bears next season. You got anything on Danny Trevathan?
Right before I get into Danny, you asked me about Kansas City's draft picks. They have this year. They have a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 6th.
So those 4: wide receiver, safety, linebacker, outside linebacker, and I think they may try and move on and get another defensive tackle. Benny Logan, I believe, which they got from free agency, used to play for the Eagles, is going to be one of those players that they may lose. With all this restructuring and getting younger guys, I think they have an opportunity to get him back or go ahead and sign a free agent.
Yeah, and I'm going to look. I think they got some more picks. I think this is an older article, but those are the ones they had slated. I think with these trades, it's kind of combobbled the system over here.
As a Raiders fan, I want to see the Chiefs pick up Preston Brown. I like Preston Brown, but I think he's more of a run stuffer than really anything else. We saw, what's that dude that used to coach for the Jets? And he coached for Buffalo, and then they had him on ESPN.
Rex Ryan?
Yeah. He really loved Preston Brown, and that's what gave Preston Brown a lot of love and time on the field. So it's interesting to watch, and I kind of want to see what they do with him. I think Rex Ryan probably tried to get as much out of him as that he could. This season, he was in that middle tier, breaching that top tier of talent. But if the Chiefs get somebody like that, I think they're going to be shooting themselves in the foot. You got anything on Danny Trevathan before you move on?
I like Danny Trevathan. I think there's definitely a possibility for him to take a big step. So we will see. All right, next guy is a guy that I kind of teased earlier when we were talking about Denver. Justin Simmons. I love Justin Simmons, man. I think the kid's going to be great. I mean, he's an up-and-comer who I preached about on my waivers multiple times, and he's panned out multiple times. Yeah,
he may have won some people their leagues.
Yeah, I truly believed in him. So I still think he takes the next step. You know, he already came in and showed that he can play. And this year, I feel like he takes a solid step, and I'm hoping he's going to be producing, depending on your scoring format, 8 to 15 points a game. Yeah. I would love for him to fall in that range. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I think about 200 points to about 180 is about where he'll fall. Again, we like to rep our own scoring system. Reason being is this is what we kind of come up with, and each year we vote and we refine our scoring system, and it kind of makes everybody relevant. Who do you have? Mike Adams?
Yes, the reason I put him on the risers is now that Coleman's gone, because I don't know how much faith I want to put in Jarius Byrd. He's a guy who concerns me with his health issues. So again, didn't sign a huge contract and seemed like he barely played in New Orleans. So I think Mike Adams would be fine to take another big chunk, but I do think the Carolina addresses part of this problem in the draft process.
All right, Mike Adams, being a little bit older, what are you going to be spending? Again, you got 10 rounds to draft this guy.
I'm probably 6 still.
Right around Ansel.
Maybe
Paul's a
5.
lot like Adam Rank, where he has unlimited 6-round draft picks. I love.
Hey, I have two 6-round picks this year,
Who'd you get that other 6 from?
and I traded one of them away. So I don't know. Buck always sends me garbage picks, so that's probably why I have a 6th.
Yeah, but you still bite.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just a game.
All right, Fallers. Paul's got Vontaze Burfict. We still have more risers.
Sorry, I made a second column and ran out of room.
Travius Adams.
Hey, this is a kid that you like too. So don't even talk about. And again, this is a guy coming off injury who's going to be playing for a team that needs pass rush.
I don't like nose tackles, man.
He's not. He's a D end.
Travius Adams, the big dude from Auburn.
He switched positions to a D end now.
Oh, geez. Did he lose weight?
Yeah, he was never super huge. So he's going to be playing D end spot. That's what they originally wanted him to do because Kenny Clark's taking that nose tackle spot. So I think he's going to take a rise. Again, this is a guy who's injury. He's going to take it up one notch. I like it.
Yeah, he's a big dude, man. I don't know. He has to have lost weight.
Hey, man, I had to throw in someone who was injured from rookie year. So I think he had great skill set. I was kind of iffy when Green Bay drafted him, but once I went back and researched it, I understood the pick. Like, I get it.
Yeah, I like him as a nose tackle.
And you liked him coming out, too.
Fantasy relevant? I don't know, man. I think he's a better pro player
He's going
than
to produce
he is in
more.
fantasy.
He's going to produce more than 0 points.
True.
You know?
So that makes him a riser.
Exactly.
Again,
I just wanted to throw in a guy that we both liked.
Yeah.
And that was hurt.
Yeah.
You know?
And this is what it's all about. This is about teasing out where his previous value was, where he's going. And if you look at it like that, then you have to decide, is this a marginal or is this a huge advantage? I see him scoring in our scoring system about 75 points, which is kind of baseline of where you see the average of defensive tackle. And again, you say he's going to be playing defensive end. That may give him more opportunities, but with a gut like that at the NFL level, and I saw him doing more bull rush than anything last season whenever I was scouting him, I don't know if he's really going to
We'll see.
contribute in fantasy. But
hopefully Green Bay drafts another pass rusher so we don't have to worry about this as much.
yeah.
On my own personal aspect.
Kwiatkowski, kid from West Virginia that we talked about earlier, playing for the Bears. He's a solid tackle guy. He's got the speed to cover, not necessarily great in coverage. Danny Trevathan kind of fulfills that role. A guy that I really like a lot, and I wish I could own him, but unfortunately, loose lips sink ships, and I told the Trevathan owner to pick him up. So maybe I can get a deal, one of these guys, at a cheap cost. We'll see. We'll probably talk about that next podcast when I end up making that trade.
I feel like this is a guy you like. That's why I threw him on this list. The Bears clearing up that cap space. I feel like getting rid of Jarrell Freeman's going to help him out big time.
Yeah.
I liked him too. More I watched him, more I liked him.
Yep. Trey Waynes, a kid that I was really high on coming out. Xavier Rhodes kind of gives him his fantasy points,
Yeah.
He's like, hey, throw to that guy.
That was a guy I was trying to get mid-season, but
Trey Waynes?
yeah, I got Shaq Griffin instead, and I was fine with that.
Yeah.
Trey Waynes was another guy, but the guy wouldn't let him go.
How did he finish?
He finished, I think, upper mid.
Mid-tier?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we can look it up real quick.
Go ahead and take the fallers. We'll come back to him.
Okay. We already talked about Vontaze. Another guy, Justin Houston. We talked about him just a second ago. Man, this is like a Kansas City podcast.
Oh, jeez.
But I just feel like he's going to be going down that list. I feel like they're bringing someone younger, and he probably starts playing for playing time. So I would like to see this happen. Another guy, Chris Harris, for Denver.
What about him?
What do you think?
Fantasy-wise?
If Aqib Talib moves on, do you feel like his value goes up or he still stays the same?
real quick, Trey Waynes finished 22nd in corners for our league, 161, which is still startable value, right there on the cusp of free agent if you're in a redraft league with about 14 teams.
And he was a guy who was waiver. He was a waiver guy, and late
guy
that we were bumping on waivers.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was a guy on that defense that could still go out and get points that wasn't already drafted for a lot of your redraft guys.
Assuming that everybody had already taken the top guys. So we were talking about Chris Harris. Okay, he's a guy that is due for money in about 2 years. They're moving on from Aqib Talib, reportedly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if he leaves, that's going to boost the value of Justin Simmons and the cornerback that comes in and plays that role. Chris Harris has respect around the league, and he isn't thrown at that often. He's a guy that I don't typically have in my my fantasy teams.
Especially if they bring in a rookie, man. His value goes down as a tackler.
Yep, and I think you're spot on with Fallers. Where did he finish? I'm kind of curious.
Know. Well,
Harris finished 71.
Yeah, that's
cornerbacks. You think he drops further than that at 104?
I think so. I really do. I mean, he's another guy who's getting a little bit longer in the tooth now.
Yeah.
You know,
you look at Aqib Talib, who finished at 85th.
Yeah.
You know?
So
you don't get points for snatching chains, man.
No points given. Another guy, Barry Church. This one's an interesting one because he's playing on a good defense, but I feel like they're gonna draft another safety.
Yeah.
And they're gonna get a guy in there and they're gonna start playing him and see what happens. Barry Church is older, you know. This is a middle point, I believe. I think Barry Church played better last year, but I think he's going to take a step down this year in his play.
Yeah, especially turning 30. But at the beginning of the season, he was hurt quite a bit. I actually owned him and Olivier Vernon, 2 picks that I got really cheap in an auction. Unfortunately, they were both hurt, and I was not getting those points until later on in the season. He was solid. I was starting him every single week. I like the guy. If they do draft a rookie, I think that rookie's going to have to be a Minkah Fitzpatrick or something of that nature. We haven't really dug into the safeties quite yet. Paul and I have been going player by player in the rookie draft positions. So we're sweeping, we're checking every single landmine, making sure that they're still good to go. Make sure you don't hop on them. So if you want, go ahead and check us out on idpfantasyempire.com. Hit that subscribe button, and that'll give you 12 months of our premium podcast, and you'll have quarterbacks, running backs, wide receiver, tight end, defensive tackle, outside linebacker, middle linebacker, cornerback, and safety.
The whole team minus kickers, because kickers are pointless.
Not only that, you're going to get our bowl games that we talked about, the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Game, and the NFLPA game. We also will be covering the Combine and probably even the draft.
Oh, yeah. I love the draft, man. So hopefully I'm there live. Someone hit me up some tickets to Dallas.
You know.
I'll figure out a way to get there.
So Barry Church falling, I don't know if I really see it. I think with his injuries last year, I think that only gives him more opportunity to rise, assuming that he plays every single game.
Okay.
I feel like, and the whole community does this. I'm not ripping one single person, but a lot of people will be like, man, that player sucked last year. But you start investigating, you start looking at it. A lot of the times it's because of injuries. And a lot of the times these guys weren't highly drafted by winning teams. Most of the people that voice their opinion on those players are teams that lose. I didn't happen to win that auction league, and we played winner take all for cash.
Yep. All right, another faller, Harrison Smith.
I mean, when you're at the top, the only way is down, you know. Harrison Smith finished.
The only reason I bring him up is because Buck, like to
traded him away.
Yeah, like to call him the fat cat syndrome.
He ended up finishing 7th in our safeties. Okay, the top 6 are Rashad Jones, a guy that we projected as our number 1 safety last year.
I remember definitely putting him up there at the top.
Jordan Poyer, again, loose lips sink ships. My dad ended up getting him because I went home on a visit for my family. And I'm like, Dad, you should pick up this dude. He's killing it. He picked him up. I had no chance of getting him. Landon Collins, no surprise here. He moves from 1 to 3 last season. Keanu Neal, guy Paul likes. Kevin Byard, a guy that the whole league tried to trade for at one point. I think everybody was sending our buddy Joe a trade in that league. Michael Hyde, no surprise there. I think going into the preseason, we had him a little bit lower, but he performed really well. Harrison Smith finished the season with 196.25 points. I ended up trading him to get Amari Cooper. Man, I could have used those safety points. But whenever you're at the top, the only way to go is really down. I think he stays right about where he's at. Another guy that's frequently hurt.
But, I think there's enough in the marginal that some guys in smaller leagues are going to be able to capitalize on some of these younger guys.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's going to fall down into the 30s unless he gets injured. That's about the only way. I could see him getting outside the top 10, maybe 15 even.
Yeah.
It's possible. As Kevin Garnett would say, anything is possible. I'm not going to yell it because I don't want to deafen you all.
All right, let's talk about strategy real fast. So we've got Miami, who struggled sort of at the defensive line spot. They end up providing the number one safety for last season. You got Jordan Poyer, who had shoddy linebackers at best. The New York Giants, Landon Collins. This guy really can do it all. A guy that I was really high on his rookie season. We started our Dynasty League the year after, and everybody knew about him, so I couldn't get him at a discount. Keanu Neal. That team's pretty sound all around. He just goes out and makes plays. Nothing really to see here. You got Kevin Byard, again, poor linebacker play. You had the old vet, Wesley Woodyard, putting up stats, but outside of him, it was really him and Kevin Byard and Adoree Jackson doing it all. You got Micah Hyde, again with Buffalo, poor linebacker crew. We dropped down a little bit to 8 and 9, and you have Patrick Chung and Devin McCourty. What's the big takeaway here? Teams that typically have poor linebackers, this allows the safety to step up and make those tackles, especially if they're getting passed over or ran through on the defensive line. So,
Buck likes to preach that Green Bay doesn't have linebackers, and HaHa's down there at 21. That's the highest Packer on the list.
Yeah. Again,
that's a hard one to gauge because usually safeties do make more tackles out there.
Yeah.
You would think the same thing for the Raiders. The last few years.
Yeah.
How their linebacking core's been.
Kind of been the problem there.
Yeah. Agreed. All right, our last faller is Paul Posluszny. That's a hard one to say because I love Paul.
Mm-hmm.
People named Paul are pretty good.
Yeah. This is a guy that's been around the league quite a bit. I believe he's 33. I'll pull that up.
Yeah, he's up there, man. He's been around the league for a long time. I just feel like, this team is young. It does have some veteran presence.
Yep.
I think he'll still be a veteran presence on this team. Don't get me wrong, but I think Miles Jackson's starting to come into his own. I think Jacksonville probably goes and gets a younger guy, either through free agency or the draft. They're going to keep building on that defense, man.
Isn't Posluszny a free agent this year?
I believe so.
Okay, do you like him for, say, the Colts or the Raiders?
No, not really.
No?
I'd rather him go to Jacksonville, to be completely honest. But
Stay?
yeah, I still feel like he's just going to have lower numbers, unless an injury comes around.
Yeah.
But, at one point, we were talking about this guy as one of the best linebackers, if not the best in the league.
Yeah.
At one point in time. The dude couldn't do no wrong, and he was smashing fools.
Yeah, and he did it for years upon years, Players typically lose their speed before they lose anything else. And this guy is the hallmark of knowledge. This guy studies hard. He prepares hard. He has the body. Look at this dude's jaw, man. It's square. Mm-hmm. It's square as a box. This guy's ready to hit people, and he's done it his whole career. A guy that Paul and I can remember whenever we first started playing. This guy was a stud.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to put him on this list, man, but I had to speak my truth.
Yeah. So you don't like him at the Colts? Say he goes to the Colts. I think he gives you way more upside than Boston.
Well, yeah, I think he does.
Yeah.
But But I mean, I'm not expecting that many points from the Colts
Production-wise,
linebackers,
yeah.
you know.
When he was in, I'll go ahead and pull those stats up.
But I still believe, I don't know, man. If he goes to the Colts, I'm okay with that. Honestly, I mean, there's part of me that wants to see him go to Miami.
Yeah.
You know, if Lawrence Timmons can go and put up numbers there, I feel like Paul can go there and put up numbers.
Yeah.
And work with Kiko and make Kiko a better player and maybe groom Stephon Anthony as well.
I hope
Use
Paul
that
does not go
knowledge.
there.
Use that knowledge and get him kind of beefed up a little bit mentally.
Yeah.
Could go a long way, man. Players have a lot of effect on each other. We don't really talk about that in the fantasy community that much.
Yeah.
You know, player to player, you know, you see the infighting in Seattle.
Yeah.
That affects fantasy points. You know, that affects the team. You know, so you
Puts
take
them on the field a lot
yeah,
more.
you take those guys who have a lot of knowledge and don't mind coaching while they're playing. Those are some of the best guys to have, man. They make everyone around them play better.
Yep.
I firmly believe that.
So we want to go ahead and thank our writers again. You're doing great work. You know, we love seeing what you're producing. Brendan actually hit me up again today, and he said, "Hey, I got a new article." So we talked through it a little bit, and you know, he's ready to roll, as well as all these guys. So we got a lot of stuff going on our website. Check that out, idpfantasyempire.com. I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing about that, and you guys are probably hitting skip 15 seconds, skip 15 seconds, skip 15 seconds.
No, what they should be doing is pausing, going to the
Hitting
website,
subscribe.
and hit subscribe.
For real, though, our podcast is really where we give out most of our knowledge. Paul and I are more like visual guys instead of writers and what have you. We do like writing. It's just one of those things. We're both working, going to school, and we got a lot of stuff going on. So digging into these podcasts, there's a lot of prep time that goes into it, and it keeps us sharp. Honestly, that's where we spend most of our time, is behind these microphones and behind the lens of our TV.
Yeah. And we love it. I do.
Yeah,
All right,
I
so
love this part of the season.
as always, thanks for sticking with us in this little bit longer one, getting you caught up on news and getting some risers and fallers. And as always, start building your empire today.